Can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Someone said yes?
No.
Okay, now we will start immediately. We solved June 2023, 41 and 42. We will solve 23, variant 43, I mean. Okay, let's start. The movement of molecules within an organism can occur by diffusion and active transport. Complete the table by placing check marks to show the correct features of each process. This is an easy question. Table 1.1. Movement of particles always occurs across a cell membrane. This is through active transport or diffusion. Active transport or diffusion? Of course, active transport, because you need carrier proteins to do that. Okay, just let me get a color. Yeah. So of course, active transport. Diffusion does not need a cell membrane. Movement of molecules during gas exchange. So here we're talking about the gases. This is active transport or diffusion?
Diffusion.
Yes. Rate of movement of particles is higher when the concentration gradient is larger, when there's a difference in the concentration gradient. Active transport or diffusion?
Active transport.
Of course not. Active transport is from low to high concentration. It does not depend on the difference between the concentration gradient. This is one of the factors that affects the rate of diffusion. The more the concentration gradient, the faster the diffusion. So this is diffusion. Diffusion requires energy from respiration. Active transport or diffusion?
Active transport.
Active transport. Okay, I want to show you the mark scheme. No, this is something I will not accept that you do a mistake in. Where is it? Okay, so and only in diffusion where the rate of the molecules of the particles is higher when the concentration gradient is larger. Only in diffusion, not active transport. Active transport is already from low to high. It does not depend on the difference between the concentration gradient. Okay, explain why active transport is important in root hair cells. Again, this is important. This is an easy question, I mean. Why is active transport important in root hair cells? And I have 3 marks. What will you say?
Because it absorbs minerals from the soil, from low to high concentration.
Correct.
Using
So the minerals, they are in raw concentration in the soil or in the root hair cell itself. In the hello. So the minerals are moving from low to high concentration. Yes. The low concentration, we want to make it clear, is in the soil or in the root hair cell.
مامي انتي هتوصليني لعند أنا أقول للمى عشان تبقى هي بقى اللي ترجعنا. هي
Okay,
لمى
can you
جنبنا كده كده.
can you please mute? So I'm going to answer this question for you until things are calm. The minerals will move, yes, from low concentration to high concentration. The low concentration is in the soil and the high concentration of the minerals inside the root hair cell. So they will have to move from low concentration to high concentration. So the only process that will be able to do that is active transport. Give me another reason. Like, why is it important to absorb the minerals by active transport? Because it's out of 3 marks. Hello? This is not enough. You will not take the 3 marks for that. Give me another reason why is it important for the absorption of active transport, for the absorption of minerals in the first place? Can someone give me an answer? Hello? Can you hear me? Layla, can you give me an answer? Why is it important to absorb minerals from the soil? We said because it,
عشان
Huh?
what?
we
I
said
can't hear you.
we said one point that it will move from low to high concentration. So we need to do it with active transport. I want another reason because it's out of 3 marks. This is not enough.
It is needed.
Minerals absorbed are needed for growth, the nitrate ions.
Exactly. You have to write something like this, that we need the mineral ions, okay, because we need it for growth. And give examples. Nitrates, for example, are needed to make proteins. Magnesium is needed to make chlorophyll. We need them for several reasons for the proper growth. Now, I think this will be enough that you will mention that they will move against a concentration gradient and the soil is concentrated and the soil has low concentration of salts, and inside the root hair cell, it has high concentration of salts. And you will give an example for the use of the mineral ions. This will give you a 3 out of 3. What if you are asked to write an additional point, if this is out of 4 marks? Now, we said that outside the root hair cell, I have little ions, low concentration of ions. Inside the root hair cell, I have a high concentration of ions. This is correct. And the ions will move from low to high. Can I translate that in terms of water potential? If I want to add an additional point? The same thing, but I want to use the word water potential. The water potential will be high inside the root hair cell or outside the root hair cell?
Outside?
Yes, correct, outside. So if I want to add an additional keyword, okay, now you need to understand the idea behind those essay questions. There is out of a certain number of marks, and every mark is for a particular keyword. So if this was out of 4 marks, you will have to think of another keyword or another fact to add. You will use the term water potential and translate that, and you will say that I will have low water potential outside and high water potential inside. No, outside you have less ions, yes, low water potential outside and high water potential inside, because outside I have lots of salts and little water. So you will add something like that. Now let's look at the mark scheme. So for ion uptake, for absorption, ion concentration is lower in the soil than in the root. Of course, we said that. Movement against a concentration gradient, we said from low to high, creates a water potential gradient. This is what we added at the very end. And you gave an example of one of the mineral ions that we will use, nitrate or magnesium. Write all the information you know so that you score all the 3 marks. Okay. Number 2, so we're done with question 1. Question 1 is easy. Transpiration is the loss of water vapor from the leaves of a plant. Complete the sentence describing transpiration. Water evaporates from the surfaces of which cells into the air?
Mesophyll.
Very good. This is the definition of transpiration. So you will write mesophyll cells here, correct spelling, please, into the air spaces and then out of the leaves through the stomata. This is also easy.
Water vapor diffusion by
Diffuse. It will diffuse out of the leaves through that stomata. Very easy question. Okay. B. Explain how the water moves up the xylem. This is a very important question, straightforward. This is the lesson plans. Who will remind me? How does the water move up the xylem?
transpiration stream.
Perfect. Excellent. This is the keyword. Now describe. Transpiration stream is the movement of the water up the xylem. How is it maintained? How does this transpiration stream or pull make the water move up the xylem? There are 2 things that we
The
studied.
xylem has no organelles. It's
The what?
considered distant. The xylem has no organelles. It's considered dead. So the water is pulled easy.
Yes, you are correct. The xylem is
Also
empty.
one direction.
Okay, and the water moves up in one direction. Correct. These are facts. I will not tell you that they are wrong. But there are 2 forces
Different
or
water
2
pressure?
Yes, number 1, changes in hydrostatic pressure or changes in hydrostatic pressure. I have low pressure at the leaves due to the evaporation of water. I have high pressure, high water pressure at the roots, and this change in hydrostatic pressure or change in water pressure will pull the water up the xylem, and explain it. And there's another reason.
The forces of cohesion.
Correct, the forces of cohesion, which is the forces of attraction between the similar water molecules that will pull the water up the xylem. This is clearly supplement. Okay, so these two factors, the changes in water pressure or hydrostatic pressure and the forces of cohesion, will pull the water up the xylem to create the transpiration stream or the transpiration pull. Plus, you will say that the xylem is adapted for this to happen because it is empty, it has no organelles, it has no nucleus, it has degenerated end walls. You have lots of information to write. And we also studied that the movement of the water up the stem is divided into 3 steps. Step number 1 is the absorption of the water by the root hair cell, remember? And here, what will we discuss? How is the water taken into the root hair cell?
By osmosis.
Correct, by osmosis. So the first step is osmosis, and you will define it and discuss it. And then the second step, which is this question, the transpiration pull. And then the third step, when it comes out of the leaves, this is when you will discuss the evaporation of the water outside the leaves. How does it evaporate? The last stage. I want one word. When the water evaporates out of the leaves, out of the stomata, this is what?
Transpiration.
Yes. So the movement of the water, we studied it as a journey into 3 steps. Into the root hair cell by osmosis, up the xylem by the transpiration pull, forces of cohesion and changes in hydrostatic pressure, and out of the leaf by transpiration, and out of the xylem into the leaf by osmosis. Okay, this part is important. A graph. Graphs are very important. There's a graph in paper 6 and paper 4. You like graphs, you don't like graphs, you have to be good at graphs because at least 3 to 4 questions per graph. A student investigated the effect of wind speed, so this is my independent variable, on the rate of respiration, so the rate of transpiration is my dependent, in a small tree. They measured the rate of transpiration when the plant was placed in different wind speeds in both light and dark. And the tree was given an adequate supply of water. So the water is not a limiting factor. I am giving it enough water. The results of this investigation are shown in figure 2.1. You have any graph, immediately you will look at the x-axis. You have the wind speed in meters per second. The y-axis, you have the rate of transpiration in grams per hour. And then you have a key. You have 2 graphs. The solid line means the plant is in the light, and the dashed line means the plant is in the dark. And it is very obvious that the rate of transpiration in the light is higher. It is generally higher than the rate of transpiration than if it was in the dark. Okay. Describe and explain the results shown in figure 2.1. How many marks? 4 marks. Now, how are the marks distributed? You have 2 marks for one condition and 2 marks for another condition. And you need to describe and explain. How will you divide this? How will you describe and explain for the first graph when the plant was in the light? Can you describe it and explain it to me? I want an answer. I don't want silence. Who will describe the first solid line? What will you say in describe?
As the wind speed increases, the rate of transpiration increases.
Thank you so much. This is not enough. You have to give numbers. Numbers. You have to code from the graph. How many times did we say that? Okay. So, yes, the first part is correct. You will describe and say that as the wind speed is increasing, the rate of transpiration is increasing. And you can be a little bit more precise. Look at the graph. At the beginning, it is increasing in all cases, from the beginning till the end. But when does the rate of transpiration become faster? From 0 to 4 miles per second when the wind speed was 0 to 4 or when the wind speed was from 4 to 10? The rate of transpiration became faster when the wind speed was from 0 to 4 or from 4 to 10. It increased from the beginning till the end. But when does the graph become steeper? Here or here? In the first part or the second part? Give me an answer. When the wind speed increases, the rate of transpiration increases, and you will give numbers. For example, when the wind speed was 0, the rate of transpiration was 2 grams per hour. And when the wind speed was, let's say, 8, the rate of transpiration was 5 grams per hour. Now, this is the describe. Can you explain why in the light, the rate of transpiration is faster? By the way, I don't have an exam in 2 weeks. You do. Why in the light, the transpiration is faster? Give me an answer. Lean. Omar Ahmed, can you give me an answer? Salma Adil, can you give me an answer? Why in the light there is more transpiration? I can't believe that no one is answering me. Did
I'm
I
not
lose
sure,
my
but is it because the stomata is more open?
Yes, you are correct. You are correct because this is the only reason. We have a nice list of the factors that affect transpiration. We said light, we said temperature, we said wind speed, and there's a reason for each one of them. You did not study it. The wind speed because of the changes in concentration gradient. The temperature because the water has more energy and it has more kinetic energy, and the water vapor will evaporate, or the water vapor will diffuse. And we said light because the stomata is open. You are correct. So in the light, now my question is, why is the stomata open? Talk to me about the guard cells.
Guard cells
Yes.
become flaccid,
Become
which cause it
flaccid?
to open.
Are you sure? When it
Turgid,
becomes flaccid,
turgid,
yes,
turgid,
becomes
turgid,
turgid. Yes.
turgid.
Why
They
will
become
it become
turgid
turgid? Correct. Why does it become turgid?
عشان it absorbs more water.
Yes, very good. During, and it will absorb more water during what?
Photosynthesis?
Yes. Yes. 1 minute. 1 minute. I'll open it because you're driving me crazy. Where am I? This is transport in plants. No, I'm not happy. I'm not happy that you're not sure of your answers because you studied all that. Here, factors affecting transpiration. We said light intensity, stomata is open to allow the gas exchange for photosynthesis, so the water vapor can diffuse out. There's a reason for every factor. This is very important. This is supplement. And the guard cells and the stomata, they are right here. Let's go back to our question. Where is the question? Here is the question. So describe and explain the results. Here, you want to write a model answer. You have 2 graphs. You have plants in the light, 2 dots, and plants in the dark. And you will describe and explain the one in the light and the one in the dark. You will describe, you will say that, as your friend said, as the wind speed increases, the rate of transpiration increases, and give numbers, quote, okay? And then explain, because in the light, the guard cells, they will absorb water, they will be photosynthesizing. Don't forget the guard cells, they have chlorophyll. So they will do photosynthesis in the morning. In the morning or in the light, they will photosynthesize and the water will move in and they will become turgid. And when they become turgid, these stomata will open. And when it opens, this will allow for gas exchange. And water vapor is a gas. So the water vapor will transpire or diffuse out. So that is why it will increase the rate of respiration, of the transpiration. And this way you will take 2 out of 2. Now in the dark, can you describe what is happening to the rate of transpiration in the dark? Let's go to the graph. This is the dashed line. What is happening to the rate of transpiration in the dark? But there is increasing wind speed. You are simply reading
Increases.
the answer. Yes, it is also increasing. But I want you to compare between the graph of the dark and the graph in the light. So in both cases, they are both increasing. As the wind speed is increasing, the rate of transpiration is increasing. But is it higher or lower in the dark?
Lower.
Lower. Very good. So this is the description. You will say that as the wind speed is increasing, the rate of transpiration is also increasing, but you will have to compare and you will say it is lower. The rate of transpiration is lower at all wind speeds in the dark. And you can quote numbers. So you're done with the describe. Can you explain why the rate of transpiration is lower in the dark? Now that's easy.
Because the
The
stomata is not
opposite.
fully open?
Exactly. Exactly. It's the opposite. Because in the dark, the guard cells will not do photosynthesis. The guard cells will not absorb water. The guard cells will not be turgid. The guard cells will be flaccid and they will close. And they will close the stomata. The stomata will be closed and there will be less exchange of gases and less release of water vapor and less transpiration. It's very easy. Just organize your thoughts. Okay? So this is an answer that will give you 4 out of 4. You have 2 graphs. You will describe and explain every graph. Describe means I want information from the graph and numbers. You will describe the trend. The graph is increasing. The graph is decreasing. The graph has a peak. The graph has a minimum. This is the describe part. And please give numbers. And so you will describe the light. And you will describe the dark. And if you have 2 grids on the same graph, you must compare. You have to. This is the description. Explanation here depends on your studying. The reasons why. Why does it increase? Why does it decrease? Etc. etc. Okay? Also, in the light, when there is more light, there is always more temperature. And this also gives more kinetic energy to the water vapor molecules and they will diffuse faster. This is another reason, but this is an addition. What we said is perfect. I hope you understand how you answered this graph because you will always have a graph in paper 4 that you will be asked to interpret. The investigation was repeated in the light with the same species of tree in an environment where the humidity was higher. So here they changed the independent variable and the humidity was higher. Draw a line on figure 2.1 to predict the results in the light with increased humidity. Okay, this is tricky. When there is more humidity, the rate of transpiration will be higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower, very good. So let me change color. Let's say I will use black color. The line will be below the light or above the light?
Below.
Correct. It will be here, somewhere here, or anywhere below the light. With the ruler, please draw to the ruler. The investigation described in 2C was repeated with different wind speeds in both the light and the dark. However, the tree was not given an adequate supply of water during the investigation. So predict the result and explain your prediction. Now, this is not a nice question. This is one of the tricky questions. I'll highlight it. Okay. Here, they told you that they repeated the investigation with light and with dark, with different wind speeds, but they did not give the plant water. There was not given an adequate supply of water during the investigation. Predict your results and explain your prediction. How will this affect the results? Can someone think about it a little bit? It's easy, by the way, just think about it.
The transpiration will decrease?
Of course, the transpiration will decrease for both. In the light, the transpiration will decrease. And in the dark, it is already low. So it will decrease a little bit. So in the light, it will decrease a lot. So in both cases, the rate of transpiration will decrease. But in the light, there will be more decrease. Why? Can you explain? Can you tell me why in the light the rate of transpiration will decrease? Excuse me?
Wilting.
Yes, you are correct. There is little water. So what will happen to the guard cells? Will they become turgid and curve outwards, or they will become flaccid and wilt?
They will come flaccid and wilt.
Correct. There is little water. So it cannot absorb water because there is no water anyway. So the guard cells will wilt or become flaccid or plasmolysis, use any keyword, and the vacuole will shrink. In other words, the guard cells will close. The stomata, they will close. That is why the rate of transpiration will drop. In the dark, the stomata, they are already closed anyway. So the stomata, they are already closed. And with lack of water, it will close a little bit more. So it will be closed and flaccid. So also the rate of transpiration will decrease, but it will decrease much more. The difference will be very big in the light, and the difference will be less in the dark. Did you understand this question? So it all rotates about the factors that affect transpiration, and they focused on one factor, which is light. So if you don't know it, you will not get the mark in this question or in the next question. That's why I tell you, please concentrate on the details, because they don't know, you don't know exactly what they will ask you about. In the first question, they told you I have light and I have dark, and the rate of transpiration is changing. And the answer is very clear, because in the light, the guard cells are photosynthesizing and they are absorbing water, and they will become turgid and they will curve outwards, and the stomata will open and the water vapor will diffuse out. In the dark, there is no photosynthesis and the guard cells will close. They will close and the stomata will close. Okay? This is in the dark, it looks like this. It's closed. Let's look at the picture here. Where is it? I got it somewhere. Yeah, here. Okay. This is the stomata is open in the light. This is the stomata is open in the dark because it's not photosynthesizing. Good. This is closing and opening the stomata. Now, also, the stomata closes in very hot or very dry weather. You also took that. When there is no water, how will the guard cell open? It will not open, because the guard cells, they only open when there is water. So there is no water, it will close. Are you all with me? Did you all understand both questions? Okay,
Yes.
so this was a tricky question. So I'm going to highlight it for you. So if you want to revise this exam, you go straight to the question that was tricky, this one. The graph question, number 2. Now, number 3, it looks easy. Figure 3.1 is a diagram of a section through a human heart. Draw an X on the septum. Where's the septum?
Between left side and hand side and
Yes.
right side.
A lot of you don't read those questions, you skip them. Explain the reason for the difference between the thickness of the walls at B and C in figure 3.1. Now, this is easy. What is B and what is C?
B is left ventricle and C is right ventricle.
Correct. So the first thing you will do is that you will label B is the left ventricle and C is the right ventricle. Why does the left ventricle have thick walls?
To be able to withstand the pressure while
Not to
pumping the blood.
withstand, to create the pressure. It will pump the left ventricles, they pump with high pressure or low pressure, with high force or less force.
High force pressure.
Yes. Yes. So the left ventricle, it needs to pump with lots of force so that it creates high pressure. Why is this important? Why do we want to pump the blood in the left ventricle with very strong force?
So it can reach the entire body and the capillary.
Exactly. So that it will enter the aorta and reach the whole body. So this is going to travel for a long distance or a short distance?
Long distance.
A long distance. And when it enters and reaches the whole body, this is which circulation, the pulmonary or the systemic?
Systemic.
The systemic circulation. Excellent. We're giving lots of information. Very good. That is why it needs thick walls so that it can pump with very high force. Very good. Now the right ventricle, why does it have thinner walls? Does it need to pump with very strong force?
No,
No. Why? Tell me.
because the distance to the lungs is short.
Exactly. Because it will only reach the lungs, which is right above the heart. It is a short distance. This is the pulmonary circulation. And give me another reason. We don't want to pump with very high pressure. It is intentional.
To avoid
Because
rupturing the delicate capillaries.
correct. So that I don't increase the pressure in the lungs and destroy the alveoli and destroy the capillaries. So we gave more than enough. It's just 2 marks. But if this can be, that same question can be out of 4 marks, by the way. So you will have to say everything we said. A red blood cell enters the vena cava at A in figure 3.1. Explain how the red blood cell is moved from the vena cava to the aorta. Now, this is also a straightforward question, but they're asking a question in a twisted format. Here, they're telling you have a red blood cell. It is in the vena cava. How does it move from the vena cava to the aorta? What will you talk about here?
Pulmonary circulation.
You will talk about, yes, you will talk about the pathway, the journey, the pulmonary circulation until the aorta. Correct. Can you tell me what will you say? So we started with the red blood cell at the vena cava. Then where does it go?
The right atrium.
Yes, if you are confused, you can look at the picture. The red blood cell will enter the vena cava. This is the superior vena cava, and then it will reach this chamber. What is this chamber? You
The
just said
right
it.
atrium.
Correct, right atrium. And then,
The right ventricle.
correct, but
And
why
then-
don't jump, write the details. The right atrium will contract and the pressure will rise in the right atrium, and then it will move through the what is this?
Valve.
Very good. What's the name of this valve?
Tricuspid valve.
Excellent, but they don't like this name, by the way. They like the general name that is between the atria and the ventricles, which is the
Atrioventricular.
Well done. So it will move through the open atrioventricular valve to reach the, what's this?
Right ventricle.
Correct,
And
right
then the right
ventricle.
ventricle will contract.
Correct, and the pressure inside it will rise, and then it will enter into the
And then it will enter into the pulmonary artery.
correct pulmonary artery through the open, what's this valve?
Pulmonary.
Correct, it's the pulmonary valve, but where is the other name? They like the other name. The name of the 2 valves, aortic valve and the pulmonary valve. They have a name together. We said atrioventricular and the correct semi-lunar valve. They prefer this name. I always noticed that they prefer this name in the mark scheme. The semi-lunar valve now will be open. Correct. It will enter the pulmonary artery. And then from the pulmonary artery, we said until the aorta. Where does it go from the pulmonary artery?
To the lungs, and then it will pass by the alveoli.
Correct. It will go to the lungs to become oxygenated and pass by the alveoli. Very good. And then what will happen?
Then it's going after gas exchange is going to pass to the aorta, go to the aorta to go back to the heart.
No,
No?
not into the aorta. It will enter back to the heart. Yes, through the pulmonary
vein.
Correct, pulmonary vein. And then the left atrium. And then the left atrium will contract and the pressure inside it will increase. And then it will go through the open atrioventricular valve here into the left ventricle. And then the left ventricle will contract and then into the aorta through the open semilunar valve or the aortic valve. So here they asked you about the systemic, circulation inside the heart. And this is core. So this is the core question. The flow of blood inside the heart. You took it in year 9 and year 10. Okay, so this question here, and it's out of, my goodness, it's out of 6 marks. 6 marks. So those who are telling me I will not study year 9, I'm telling you, no, please don't ignore it. Yes, finish year 10 and then go back to year 9, please. So this question is out of 6 marks. It's talking about the flow of blood inside the heart from chamber to chamber, from ventricle to ventricle, from every point to every point. And please, it's out of 6 marks, so do not ignore anything. Write the name of the chambers and the name of the valves and the name of the vessels and everything. And even discuss the function of the valves. Why does one set of valve close and the other set of valve open? What's the function of the
To
valves?
avoid the backflow of the blood.
Yes,
back
to
into the heart.
avoid the, correct, to avoid the backflow of blood. Okay, now I want to show you the mark scheme to show you that all these details need to be there. Okay, because sometimes you think that we're writing too much. No, we're not writing too much. They want everything. Look here. So the red blood cell will be carried in the following order: from the vena cava A into the right atrium, we said it, from the right atrium to the right ventricle. As it contracts, we said that, out of the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, we said it, as the right ventricle contracts, and then through the lungs or the pulmonary circulation into the pulmonary veins in the correct order. It has to be in the correct order. From the pulmonary vein to the left atrium, from the left atrium to the left ventricle, as the left atrium contracts, out of the left ventricle into the aorta, as the left ventricle contracts, correct atria to correct ventricle. See that? So there has to be the correct order. Through the atrioventricular valve, or atrioventricular valves close to prevent backflow. Correct ventricle to correct artery through the semilunar valves. And they close to prevent the backflow of blood. So every single detail is written in a 6-mark question. You have to write the whole flow in the correct order and mention the function of the valves. I hope you get this question properly correct. This is core. Now let's continue. Another graph. An athlete measured her heart rate during a running race, and she recorded it before the race, during the race, and during her recovery. And her results are shown. Again, always start by looking at the x-axis. You have an increase in time. And that as the time is increasing, we are measuring the heart rate. This is the starting heart rate, obviously. 1 minute, I'll change it to red color. And this is the heart rate increasing during exercise. And then, of course, when she is recovering. Suggest how the athlete could monitor the activity of the heart. This is an easy question. How can you monitor the activity of the heart? You took several methods.
Listening to the sound of the valves shutting.
Yes, this is one way. I can use the stethoscope. Maybe you don't even need to write its name, but you will hear the sounds of the valves closing, correct? What else? Let's revise all methods. What can I do?
ECG.
Yes, I can simply write the ECG. I don't have to write its full name, electrocardiogram. Another easy method.
Putting your thumb on your wrist.
Yes, but this is not enough. Where exactly on the wrist? You will put your thumbs on the... Which blood vessel has a pulse? The artery or the vein?
Vein.
The artery below the thumb.
Yes, the artery, not a vein. No vein. Veins have no pulse, my dear. So the thumb's on the wrist. If you want to be specific, below the thumb, you have to mention that it is on an artery because you are measuring the pulse, the flow of blood inside the artery. Every time the heart contracts and blood flows, the artery will have a pulse because of the high pressure. So you feel it.